Hello everyone, it's Gibson Shamar from Hekati Media and we're here to talk about Spawn. So, we're back and we're going to talk about an adult animation that has gained some sort of mild cult status. Todd McFarlane's Spawn. So, we know how it goes. If we don't, let's sit through the explanation again. I'm going to talk about the characters first, then talk about the show itself. Sometimes I add interesting behind the scenes facts and stuff. Other times it just is my thoughts on the show, and in case of it getting future seasons, I talk about what it could look like it's setting up. Anyway, here it goes. First off, we have the main character, Al Simmons. He's a deeply flawed guy who committed a lot of atrocious acts when he was alive. Enough to get him a ticket to the realm below in the afterlife after he was killed, betrayed by his comrade who burned him alive. You could say that was just the beginning. He comes back to Earth after making a deal with the Hell Lord called Nemonja. At least, that's what I think his name was. For some reason I could never get the name right, but I'm sure it was Nemonja. The deal was that he could come back immediately, but he ended up being returned 5 years after he died and found out that his wife, Wanda, had already moved on and found love with a former friend of his, not the guy who killed him. Al is a man full of regret, but not much will to do anything about it except get back with Wanda. He goes through the show getting his heart in the right place, but his heroic nature is still shrouded by the fact that all he wants is to get back with Wanda and not much else, except for revenge against the people who had him killed. He resides in an alley that seems to be the center of attention in the city he lives in, because all these criminals and murderers always end up going there for some reason or another. Then we've got Wanda. Oh, Wanda. She's really pretty. Really pretty. Really, really pretty. Where was I? Oh, yeah. She's an attorney and works hard to make sure that justice is served. Unlike her husband, she does respectable work and probably won't go to the great below realm that Al went to when she dies. She has a daughter, Sian. The daughter is not Al's, but her new husband's, Terry. She is shown to still be stricken by grief over the loss of Al, but stays firm in her new marriage, not letting that get in the way. It helps that Terry understands her regarding that issue. She spends most of the show doing attorney work and wondering what is going on in the city and how things are just getting so much worse all of a sudden. Next up, Nicholas Cogliostro. He's an interesting guy. When he first appeared, he appeared to be just an old man who's been around for a while and seen his fair share of weird things. But it turns out that there was more to him. He was a spawn too. Well, they say hell spawn, so yeah. It turns out that he was a medieval knight and killed so many people in grueling ways that it earned him a premium ticket to the realm below. He managed to rid himself of the power of the hellspawn and lived out the remainder of his life as an old man. He tries to mentor Al, but Al doesn't listen to him. Even after revealing his true identity to him, Al wouldn't listen and just kept doing his own things. Nicholas shows great concern for those around him, but is helpless to do anything that actually helps apart from just giving advice and hiding in the shadows. On the villain side, we have Jason Wynn. He's the big bad of the show. He's the one who had hired Al in his Crimes Against Humanity missions. He's the one who had Al killed as well by paying off his friend. His goal was to achieve ungodly power. He already ruled the underworld and had politicians in his pockets, but he wanted more than that, which led him to commit atrocious crimes throughout the show. One of them included imprisoning a guardian priest of an ancient artifact of great power for 5 years in a small cell and never letting him out, barely giving him any food or letting him interact with anyone. The guardian priest was actually an enforcer of Wynn's, but then reformed, and Al was sent to go after him. Jason eventually starts going after Terry, who works for him as well. It's a wonder how he even has employees, considering how often he had them killed. But that's a story for another day. He's a despicable man, dangerously ambitious, and has no morals. He is goal oriented though. It doesn't matter what he has to do or who he has to do it to, as long as he gets what he wants. Then we have the most annoying baddie in the show. And no, I don't mean Instagram baddies. I mean bad guys. The clown, also known as Violator. Seriously? That is a disgusting freak who just blurts out all the invasive and dark thoughts he comes up with. A lot of the time I didn't even understand what he'd say, but when I did, I'd feel like punching him in the face. He's a demon who works for Nemonja, and it is his job to keep the Hellspawn in line. He's always looming over Al's shoulder and telling him what he's supposed to do, or telling him to do his job in order to keep Nemonja happy. Then he starts rubbing it in Al's face that Wanda belongs to someone else. He also talks some nasty. And that's when Al finally snaps and attacks him. But he overpowers Al and beats him up. At least he's able to back up his nasty words. Al can't do anything about him, but thankfully he never talks poop again. Instead, he starts manipulating others to wreak havoc so that Al can kill them. Back to supporting good guys, we have Terry. He's a pretty chill guy, a reasonable father who is shown to be way over his head. He's working for Jason Wynn, but has no idea just how evil his boss is. And that's just the thing. He starts looking into what his boss is doing, and then when he starts putting two and two together, his boss starts going after him, which leads to him distancing himself from his family. As the responsible man that he was, he found it to be better to leave them unprotected without telling them what was going on. That's just how it goes in superhero shows. He's a strong man, very well built, and probably what females would consider handsome. He loves Wanda and their daughter Sian very much and would do anything to keep them safe. I expected him to be an anus or something when I first saw him, but he turned out to be a stand-up guy. Little Sian. She doesn't have much character-wise. She is the usual innocent child who has no idea what's going on. We've got Twitch, who is a detective who at some point in the show developed some sort of sixth sense that helped him solve crimes. He's a very stiff, very calm and collected person. It's probably a side effect of living in that city as a cop. Seriously, that city has just such a horrid mess when it comes to crime. People get killed regularly and in very public places in gruesome ways. Twitch is one of the few mortals who is getting close to finding out about Al's condition. He actually finds out that Al may actually be alive. If the show carried on, I'm sure he would have found out the whole truth through investigation. He may be a likable character, but in real life, he'd be the creepiest guy you could possibly run into. There are other characters in the show, but their stuff can be covered in a sentence or two, so let's just get on with the show. See what I did there? No? Well, just so you know, it's like poetry. It rhymes. Anyway, this show is just so dark and dreary. It is solemn. It is deep, I suppose. It is grimy, depressing, and just outright concerning. How could someone come up with something like this and consider themselves okay? Plus, this show is super edgy. My goodness, it's edgy. Geez, it deals with themes of regret, religion, redemption, and human nature. Things start off mysteriously, but then the pieces start adding up with time, like what the point of the Hellspawn actually is. We start to see bits of this war between heaven and hell. Heck, the forces of heaven are portrayed in a not so black and white, nice kind of way. They are ready to execute anyone who stands in their way in this war, and even Al asks what kind of heaven does that, more than once. The show picks up on the action towards the end of the third season, whereas the rest of it dwells on dramatic elements like Al slowly, very slowly, coming to terms with what he is. In fact, by the end, he doesn't even come to terms with what he is. He just understands and knows it, but doesn't accept it or try to make use of it. The show is very linear as well. There are no ridiculous time skips between each episode. In fact, it all seems to just be happening consistently, where each episode picks up where the last one left off, and it just keeps it like that. Like season 5 of Samurai Jack. The show had a lot of potential to be something big, but I felt like the edginess it exhibited a lot of the time slowed it down. I think there's such a thing as being too mature, and that's what this show suffered from. I remember so many episodes where when they ended, I was just like, dude, this is just so dark. Yeah, I understand that not everything needs to be cheerful and all. Please understand that I'm not saying that the darkness is bad. I just think that this was very extreme. I mean, it worked for the show, but for a character like Spawn, I don't think just being dark cuts it. It needed to be grandiose and more action-filled, but it wasn't. It was just super dark. I mean, the last line of the show was Al saying that he wants his humanity back while he's brooding. The characters are well explored and we see the depth of Al's love for Wanda. It's so good that he shapeshifted into Terry and went to sleep with her because he knew that she was scared of what he looked like. She didn't know that it was him. Sion only knew him as the sad man and would recognize him in any instance since he rescued her from the kidnappers. That storyline is also kind of weird and it never goes anywhere. Funny because when they were making the 3rd season, they knew that it was the last one, and they decided to just plant more questions instead of giving us closure. That reminds me of a certain director who just couldn't help himself because all he knows to do in his movies is to put in questions for the fans to answer in what we like to call mystery boxes. Was it all part of the grand design? The animation was very good for a 90s cartoon and the voice acting was nice too. I'm guessing the amount of work put into those is what made the season so short. 3 seasons, and each season was 6 episodes. Yeah, that's not so long, is it? I also have to say that it was very annoying to see how slowly Al would react to situations. He was with the alley people who took him in and were rightfully afraid of him, but they treated him as one of their own, and he would only step in to save them or protect them after they get beat up for a long time, even though he's right there watching everything. And he doesn't do that once, he does it every single time. And you know what the worst part is? The people who beat them up are always looking for him, and he just watches the whole thing and decides to step in very late into the beating to do something. Like, yo, these people can't afford to go to the hospital. Why do you put them through this? Just help them out right away. This show isn't really my cup of tea, but it was enjoyable when it was. I recommend it for those who like dark, edgy stuff. But me, nah, not really. But I can't say that it was bad. It had a long-term story to tell that unfortunately was cut short. Check it out for yourselves. While you search for it, you could also look through our Facebook page, our Instagram page, and our channel right here for more content. Seriously, we need more folks looking through our content.